Palestinian authorities say the death toll from the war in Gaza and the West Bank is nearing 40,000 people. That's 40,000 dead. And now they say that Israel has arrested another 10,000 people across the occupied West Bank and Jerusalem since October 7th. And the war only looks to expand as Israel awaits retaliation from Iran. Here to break this down is Palestinian-American journalist and researcher Ramzy Baroud, who wrote a book on prisoners, Palestinian prisoners in captivity by Israel. The book is called These Chains Will Be Broken. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Natali.
So why is Israel detaining these people? On what authority? We are familiar with the prisoners in Gaza, the Israelis, but what is the cause by which Israel has always detained Palestinians and continues to do so? And what are their rights?
Right. That's a very kind of layered question, because in actuality, Israel does not have the right to detain Palestinians, especially under these conditions, according to the Fourth Geneva Convention and other conventions and treaties regarding the rights of prisoners during time of war. Let's just step back a little bit before October 7, 2023, when the arrest of Palestinians or the detention of Palestinians became just the everyday reality, where you have about 10,000 Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza who have been imprisoned by Israel in the last 10 months, in addition to thousands of Palestinians in which we know absolutely nothing about, who have been detained from Gaza. We don't have numbers regarding the Gaza detainees. We just know that they are in their thousands, but we don't know where they are being held exactly. Once in a while, there's a leaked video of horrendous torture, rape. Once in a while, there's a freed prisoner who would come and tell these horror stories that are taking place. But basically, there's a black hole, and the Gaza prisoners all fell in it. And neither the Red Cross nor any United Nations linked organization is allowed to investigate or to know what's happening to the Gaza prisoners. But prior to all of this, Palestinians have been held in Israel in their thousands, and for years. Israel is an occupying power according to international law. The term military occupation is in itself not a bad term or a good term. It's a legal term. It means that there is an occupying party and an occupied entity, and the occupying party has to exercise certain kind of responsibility towards the occupied. One of them is that you cannot detain people in mass. You cannot hold people in your own territories, meaning moving them out of the occupied entity to your own territories. You cannot torture. This is not open for for an opinion or legal deliberation, as the Israelis are right now deliberating whether it's okay to rape Palestinians or not. International law does not, kind of have that kind of gray area where torture and rape could be under certain circumstances permissible. But Israelis have been torturing Palestinians for a very long time. They hold them in large numbers, mass arrest. They arrest as a form of collective punishment. Children, hundreds of them, are detained in Israeli prisons as we speak. Many women are detained in Israeli prisons as we speak. The vast majority of Palestinians who are detained are political prisoners. It means that they are prisoners of opinion. You could write a Facebook post and you could find yourself a prisoner in Israel, tortured in Israel, sentenced by a military court in Israel. All of this has happened before October 7. So imagine, with this kind of spirit of vengeance that has taken over Israel since October 7, what is actually taking place. Now, the debate is, should Israeli soldiers rape? And if they do, what are the circumstances in which they could be held accountable? And by the way, none. And does that make them less heroic than those who don't? I think we have entered into this very strange matrix of irrational inhumanity. within the Israeli political and societal discourse that I don't even know if there is any legal opinion that even matters in this subject. If you are actually talking about whether torture and rape with such savagery should actually be permitted or not. Even the Americans themselves, who have been supporting Israel in every possible way in their war against the Palestinians, have spoken out against the instances of rape simply because they are documented, they are on leaked videos, and that kind of raises a whole different question. Why is the Israeli army leaking videos of rape? And I think that takes me to the reason of why I wrote the book that I did. These chains will be broken. The idea here, it's not about trying to exact information from Palestinians. That's not why Israel tortures. Israel tortures to break the will and the spirit of the Palestinians, to remind them that they are forever inferior and that Israel has the upper hand. And deterrence at an emotional and psychological level is still in place. That's why you have these kind of situations in which Palestinians are going beyond the everyday politics of the humiliation that Israel practices against Palestinians, but into a whole new territory of mass violence, torture, sexual assaults, and outright rape.
Now, some of the numbers that were released include, let's see, 700 children now. And you're quite right. We only have the numbers from the West Bank and Jerusalem because Gaza is a black hole. We can't see it. There's no transparency. So we have 700 children, 94 journalists, 53 of them still under arrest, 5 female journalists, 16 journalists from Gaza that we know of, women, let's see if I have that number, including a pregnant woman. So when we talk about children, are we talking about teenagers or even prepubescent children?
Yeah, we are talking about actual children as opposed to, a 17-year-old who just happened to be maybe close enough to being an adult, and it happened that he did something so horrible that had Israel arrest him. We are talking about raids in the middle of the night and family homes in Silwan, Sheikh Jarrah in Jerusalem, throughout the West Bank, in which children at the age of 12 and 13 are being dragged out of their homes. Many of these children have been accused of throwing rocks at the Israeli soldiers who are invading their neighborhoods and their towns, or they have participated in anti Israeli occupation protests. Many of these children, when they are released to home custody. Therefore, they are unable to go to school. I have personally documented many such cases where the Israeli army would actually come every single night to some of these families' homes to check if the child is there, and if they are not, then the father himself, the brothers, the mother, the sisters could find themselves being assaulted, being detained, having to pay heavy fines, and so forth. Again, a lot of this has been taking place prior to October 7th. So I just want your listeners and your viewers to try to imagine that in this genocidal state of affairs, what kind of fate do these prisoners who have been treated very, very badly prior, what kind of a state they are living in? We have seen reports by Human Rights Watch, Amnesty, even Israel's own human rights organization, B'Tselem. I think they have done such good work on this subject about the starvation of Palestinian prisoners per the orders of National Security Minister Itmar Ben-Gvir. And by the way, he's not lying. I mean, to his credit, the guy is not hiding it. He is saying that I think I have a solution to the overcrowdedness of prisons, killing them. He says that publicly, openly, on Israel's channel 14, day and night. That's the kind of hate mongering that is coming out of Israel. But these are not ordinary individuals. This is a man who holds the keys to all Palestinian prisons. And this is the man who's actually carrying out the actual policy that he is enunciating on television every day.
Now, something that people will say is, well, if Hamas just releases the Israeli prisoners, this can be over. But we see that this is not a clear one-for-one life exchange. We've known this for decades. For instance, in 2011, when Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit was released after being in captivity for 5 years in Gaza, his one life was paid in exchange for 1,000 Palestinian prisoners. So doesn't this show us that Israel always has Palestinians to spare? And it is not a clear one-to-one exchange. We don't have like a Bitcoin rate of dollar to Bitcoin. How many lives are... It's not a humanist argument that we have here, but how do you respond to this idea that if Hamas just released the prisoners, this would be over?
Absolutely, not in the least. I mean, before the war started, there were about 7,000 or 7,000 Palestinian prisoners held inside Israel. It's kind of like give and take. Sometimes it goes back to 5,000, but a minimal threshold has been around 5,000 or so. It goes up during times of strife. It goes down. So if the issue here is indeed this is an Israeli response to something that the Palestinians have done, then why holding thousands of Palestinian prisoners prior to that? I told you about my book. The book was written before October 7th. Why did we have the need to report the stories of the thousands of Palestinian prisoners held inside Israel? Gilad Shalit was captured in the war in 2006 by the Palestinians. He was in an area called the Gaza envelope. Part of his job was to ensure the perfection of the siege on Gaza. So he was captured in war. The reason that Israel delayed the exchange deal, which is 1,000 for, I think, 1,026 or 25, the reason that they delayed is because they don't want to give Palestinians leverage. You see, for Israel, the whole issue is about leverage. It's not about the actual human value of their prisoners and certainly not of the Palestinian prisoners. But they fear that if they allow Palestinians to have that kind of power, then they are going to tailor their resistance in the future against the Israeli occupation and apartheid in such a way where they can always exact that kind of concessions from Israel. So when many Israelis, including the families of the prisoners themselves, say Netanyahu doesn't care about the prisoners, when the head of the Israeli opposition, Lapid himself, says he doesn't care about the prisoners, they're not lying. They are actually telling the truth. He doesn't, because they fear again that an exchange with these prisoners would be translated by Palestinians to some kind of a victory, that they managed to get what they wanted, and that Israel has for the first time lost in terms of the strategic war that has been fighting against Palestinians for 10 months now.
Right. Well, thank you for breaking this down. I want to suggest that everybody follow Ramzy on Twitter and also seek out the book, because it's quite correct that academics and researchers have been trying to raise the issue about Palestinian prisoners in captivity by Israel for a long time. It should not be October 7th that brought our attention to this. And if you really are rooting for humans and their freedom, you have to root for all humans, Israeli and Palestinians as well. So thank you as well for your time.
Thank you very much, Natali.